What is popping YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Henry and I'm back here again with another video tutorial for you guys. So in this tutorial, I would like to show you guys how you can create a simple authentication system using Angular and Okta. So Okta is an authentication provider that allows you to easily add authentication to your web applications. Now you can use Okta with different programming languages or framework such as Angular or React or Vue.js or even Java. So in this video, I'll be showing you how to do that with Angular. Now, if you want to learn more about Okta, you can simply go to their website at okta.com and you can read more about their solution and the product that they provide. If you want to create a developer account for Okta, you simply go to developer.okta.com. And as you can see, they have all the website or all the programming languages that is you can use with Okta shown here on their page. So for the web app, for example, you have Go, Java, .NET, Node.js, PHP, and Python. For single page application, you have React, Angular, and so on. But in this video, I'll be showing you how you can create a simple authentication system using Angular and Okta. You're going to see how easy it is to add authentication to your application using Okta. So let's take a sneak peek of the application that we'll be building today. So I already have it running on localhost 42,000 and by default it goes to my login page right here. You see I just have this nice bootstrap navigation bar at the top and I have the Okta sign-in widget. So with Okta you can get some components from Okta and add to your application. This saves you some development time. So instead of creating a card and a bootstrap form to create your own sign-in page, you can just take the widget from Okta, and it also have a lot of features implemented in it. For example, it has validation. So if I decide to take off my username and my password, you see I get those error messages that say I should enter a username and a password. Also, if I try to sign in, you see I get some error messages coming from the server. So let's quickly create a new user that we can sign in with. So I'm going to hit on the sign up button right here, and it's going to take me to the create account form where I can enter details for my new account. So I'm going to enter an email here. So thinking of an email right now, I'm just going to say Thomas. So thomas.tuchel@gmail.com. that's our email, and for our password let's just use Chelsea123. Now for the password, you see that there are some validations here that the password should meet. So the characters should be at least 8 and it shouldn't contain any part of the username. So I'm also going to enter my first name and last name. And with Okta you can customize what fields that you want to show up on this sign up page, but by default you just have your first name and your last name. So for the first name I'm going to enter Thomas, and for the last name I'm going to enter Tuchel, spell that right, and then I'm going to hit on register. So Okta is going to register and sign me in to my account. So here on the application, you see I just have this home page that shows a welcome message and says welcome with my name right here. All right, that's just it to creating a new account. So I'm logged in now. When you sign up, it logs you in directly. So I'm signed in. I can log out, so I can simply click this button and it's going to take me back to the login page. So now that I have an account, I can come back here and I can do thomas.tuchel@gmail.com and I enter our password, which was Chelsea123. and I hit the sign in, and you can see I'm signed in again. And also you have the remember me functionality, so you can check that to remember your credentials. So let's say I close the application by mistake and I try to open it. You see I'm still logged in, which is good. So the remember me functionality is implemented for us by default, which is really cool. So I'm going to log out, and that's it. This is the application that I would like to show you guys how you can build with Angular and Okta. So I hope you guys would enjoy this tutorial. Sit back, relax with a drink or popcorn, and follow along and code along, and I hope you enjoy the tutorial. Alright guys, so let's get started with creating our application. First, we want to make sure that we have created an account with Okta. So to do that, you want to head over to developer.okta.com. And when you get here, you can click on the sign up button if you don't have an account, and then sign up with your email. It's very easy and straightforward. And if you have done that, you can come over here and click on the sign in to Okta. So I already have an account, so I'm just going to sign in directly, and I'll be signing in with my email. You can choose to use any other provider you prefer. And I have quite some accounts here at Okta, so I'm going to pick the first one. And here I want to give my email, and then I'm going to enter my password. Alright, so it's going to take me to the Okta dashboard, as you can see. So there are quite a number of things here that you can find, but the one that we are interested in is the applications, right? So we want to create an application that we would like to integrate with Okta. So we want to click on the application button there, and here you see I've created some applications here already, but we want to create a new one. So you're going to click on this create app integration. So that's the one that you want, and you have the sign in method here. There are different options, but the one that we'll be going with is the first one, which is the OpenID Connect. And you see this is the recommended one if you intend to build a custom app integration with that Okta sign-in widget that I showed you. So we need that widget, so we'll be using the first option. And for our application type, we are building an Angular application. So it's a single page application. You can use JavaScript, Angular, React, or Vue. Alright, so I'll be choosing a single page application, and I'm going to hit on next. Alright, so now we have the general settings where we can provide information about our application. So for the app integration, you want to give it any name that you like. I'm just going to call it Auth App because it's just an application to add authentication. Alright, you can also give a logo for your application. So if you go back to the application I showed at the beginning, you see I have this logo here, Angular logo. So you can use your own logo or a different logo. I'm just going to leave it out for now, and I'll add it later. And for the grant type, there are different type of grant type. If you are familiar with OAuth, you have authorization code, you have implicit flow, you have refresh token and password authentication, client credentials, and so on. But the one we are interested in is authentication code. All right, so we're going to leave that the default that is selected for us. And for our sign-in redirect URIs, these are optional, and Okta gives you a default for it. So I'm happy with the default. The only thing I want to do is I want to change the port to 4200, just because Angular is using that port as the default. 8080 is the default for Spring Boot, so I'm just going to leave it at 4200. All right, and for the assignment, I'm going to allow everyone. So this is where you can limit control to your application, who can have access, who can log in, or who can log out. All right, so this is the settings that we'll be sticking to for our application. So I'm going to hit on save. Okay, and as you can see, you already have a sample application that you can download. So you can download the sample application with Okta and you can make use of that. The Angular application is already available here for download, but we're going to be creating it from scratch, so I'm going to leave that out. And you can play around that if you are interested, but I'm going to create from scratch. So we have our client ID, and the authentication is using Pixie, which is the proof of key for code exchange. And we have authorization. Everything looks good. So I'm going to go to sign on, and I can see all the settings right here. And yeah, it looks good to me. So you can either download the sample application, or you want to copy your client ID, because this is what you would be adding to your Angular application for you to recognize the application that you just created. So the next thing that we'll be doing is we'll copy over this client ID and we'll create a new application from scratch. So guys, we're going to continue creating our application by creating a new Angular application. So I'm right here on my terminal, and you want to go to any location on your computer that you prefer. So I'm just going to increase this a bit, and here I'm on my documents folder. I'm just going to make a new directory. I'm going to call it Okta demo. All right, so I'm going to create that, and then I'm going to go to that. Yeah, and now that I'm there, I want to create a new application. So I'm going to be using the Angular CLI, and if I just check that real quick, oops. If I check that real quick, I'll be using Angular version 12, which is currently the latest version at the time of recording. And to create a new Angular application, I'm going to do ng new. I'm going to call it auth app, and then I'm going to hit enter. And yes, I would like to use Angular routing and CSS, and it's going to do the good stuff, install all the necessary packages that we need for our application. All right, the installation is complete and our application is created. So we want to go into our application. It's auth app, and I would open it on Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code would be the editor that I'll be using for this tutorial. So if you have Visual Studio Code, feel free to follow along, or you can use your favorite editor. All right, now we have our application. We want to go ahead and create the components that we're going to need for our application. So I'm just going to quickly bring up the terminal inside VS Code. Just going to take it up a little bit. All right, so we're going to start generating our components. So for our application, we just need two simple components. One for our welcome page. We're going to call that welcome component. So I'm going to do ng, G for generate, C for component in our components folder, and we're going to call it welcome component. We don't want any unit tests, so I'm going to skip test. All right, we have that generated, and we need one more component for our login. So I'm going to call that login component. Okay, so we have our welcome component, we have our login component in our component folder. That's good. So next thing I would like to do is I would like to configure our route so that we can route to those pages that we have created. So if I go to our application and I go to app.routing.module.ts, and here in this array we can configure our routes. All right, so I'm going to open a brace, and I'm going to add the path. For the first route, I'm just going to call it welcome. That will be for a welcome page, and the component it's going to be the welcome component. All right, and we're going to add for the other route, which is the login component. So I'm going to do path login component, and let's add one more, which is going to be our default route. If a user tries to redirect to the default page, we're going to redirect them to the welcome component. So I'm just going to do redirect to, and this would be /welcome, which we have defined here, and for the path match we're going to say full. All right, now we have our components created. So the next thing we would like to do is to create our config file. So with our config file, we can set up all their properties. But before I do that, I just want to bring in Bootstrap, because we'll be styling our pages with Bootstrap. So I'm going to bring back the terminal once again and quickly install Bootstrap. So I'm going to say npm install -- save Bootstrap. So this should install the latest version of Bootstrap for us. Alright, so we have Bootstrap 5.1.0. So I'm going to close that, and we can set that up on our Angular.json file right here. And so on our Angular.json file, we have this for the build. Yes, so right here we want to bring in our Bootstrap class, and our Bootstrap class will be coming from our node module. So if you check the node module folder, you should be able to find the path, but I'm just going to bring that in really quick to save time. So we're going to find the Bootstrap CSS right here. And also I'm going to bring that for the JavaScript. All right, so I'm just going to paste that and save. And haven't done that, we need the Bootstrap navigation. Okay, I forgot to generate a class for the nav, so I'm just going to bring our terminal again. Now I'm going to do ngg for generate c for components folder, and I'm going to put this in our nav, and then we want to skip the test. Okay, so that was done for us, and we have our navigation bar here. So let's quickly grab Bootstrap navigation from Bootstrap. I want to open this. I have a lot of tabs open. I'm just going to close all of them. Alright, and we want to head over to getbootstrap.com examples, and we want to get a nav bar. Let's go with this nav bar fix. I'm going to go to view page source, and we can see all the code for the nav bar, so I'm just going to copy this, and now we can go back to go back here, and then we can paste our nav bar here. All right, so this is our nav bar. And take this back and use Ctrl P and then search for whatever component that I need. So I'm going to go to app.component.html. so this is the default HTML file that comes with Angular. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to leave the router outlet because we have some pages that we want to route to. I'm going to put everything in a container since we have Bootstrap now, and I'm going to move the router outlet in our container. And one more thing I would like to add is the nav bar. So I'm going to do app-nav, and I'm going to save this. And I knew that the name for that is app-nav because if I go to the nav component.ts, you see that the name right here is app-nav. Alright, so because we added those bootstrap styles, we need to rebuild our application again. So every time you make changes to your angular.json file, you need to build your application. I think we didn't even serve the application yet, so I'm just going to do ng serve. And let me just have the browser open right here. Going to close this, close that, and it should be running now. Localhost 4200, not yet. All right, so it's running now, and here is our nav bar. We already have it right here, so we can take off what we don't need quickly. All right, so we want to fix our navigation bar. So right here, I'm going to do Command P, and I'm going to go to navcomponent.html. So we're going to take away this form, and I'm going to save that. For the fix bar, we can just change it to the name of our application, which is Auth app. I'm going to save that, and we can add the router link, and that would go to, let it default to the welcome page. And for the links, we just need one. So I'm going to take away this one, and I'm going to take away, you know what, let me just leave the other one. So we have two links. I have one to home and the other one would go to the login. You know what, we should take this out. Instead we can duplicate the UL so that we can push the other login to the right. All right, so I have home here and I have login. So this is going to go to -welcome. And this is the router link. Just going to copy this here. Paste this here. And this would go to login. Going to save that. And now we have this ME Auto, and the other one should be MS Auto. So one is at the start and the other one is at the end. So I'm going to save that. If I look at our application now, we have two links. If I click on home, I click on login, you see I go to login. I click on home, you see I go to welcome, but we don't see any messages below. So we should push the elements down a bit, so we can do that from the app component.html, I think. Actually, we want to go to the style. So if I go to the styles.css here, and here we can add default style. So if I go for the body and then I put some padding top to be 80 pixels. Oh, that works. So now you see I get the login works here. And if I go to the home, I get the welcome works. All right, so we have Bootstrap, we have our pages. The next thing we want to do is we want to bring our configuration. So we want to bring our configuration from Okta. All right guys, so the next thing that we need to do with our application is to bring our configuration from Okta to the application. But before we do that, we need to install the Okta dependency to our application. So if I go back to my browser and I type Okta Angular, let's look for that dependency and see how we can bring it. And you come to this link right here that says Okta Angular npm.js. You're going to see what we should install. So we should install the library, and you can go through all of the documentation right here. This is really good stuff that has been documented out for us. So this is what we will be doing in the application. So I'll just go ahead and install Okta Angular to our application. I'll copy this, and then I would open another terminal window here, and then I'm going to paste that command right here. So this is going to bring the Okta Angular dependency to our application. And with the Okta Angular, another dependency that we'll be using in our application that we also need to bring in is the Okta widget. So the Okta sign-in widget. So if I just type for Okta sign-in widget and you put npm at the end, so you're going to see it also right here, all the documentation for the widget. And if I scroll down a bit, this is the way we can install the widget with Yarn, and we are using npm as our dependency manager, so we're going to bring it in this way. And you can see the documentation also of how to use the widget on this page. So let's also install the widget. I'm going to copy and paste that over and hit enter, and there we can install our widget. While it's installing, let's create that file that we will store all the properties from Okta, right? So we're going to call it config. You can call it anything you want. So I'm just going to create a new folder, and then I'm going to call it config. So that's our folder config, and let's create a new file in the folder, and let's call the file my-app-config.ts. So this is the file where we would put all our configuration properties. And these properties, remember, we can get it from our application. So I'm just going to go back to my Okta account to copy those properties once again, just to be sure that I have the right properties. So I'm going to sign in again to my account. I'm going to choose the right one, and let's keep the door for now. Oops, this is not the one. Let me just go back, and it's this one right here. Let me just sign out here. Right now I'm signed in as Tomasz, so I'm just going to sign in with my account because I'm the administrator of the account. Type in my password. All right, I'm signed into my account. So on the Okta account, on the dashboard, what you see as an administrator is different from what a user of the application sees. So being the administrator, I can see all the options to do all the configuration on my account, but the user doesn't have all this view when he logs into Okta. So to get the properties for application, we want to go to this application link right here and click on application, and this is the app that we created. That's our client ID that we need to copy over. So I'm just going to come to this page right here, and here you can see our client ID and the Okta domain. So we're going to put it in this file. Let's just create a class for this our file. So I'm just going to say export default. This is a default class, and let's create a property. I'm going to call the property OIDC, just to put all the configuration here. And in here I want to add first the client ID of the application. I'll put this in quote, and the next property I want to have there is the issuer. So I want to have the issuer, which would be my Okta domain with some other parameters added at the end. And finally, I want a redirect URI. So redirect URI, we set this in when we created the application. And we also need to add some scopes for this. So if I go to scopes, and I can put different scopes that I'll use for the application. I'm just going to put open ID, and then I'm going to put profile, and lastly I'm going to put email. Alright, so I'm going to save this, and then let's copy the client ID and copy the client ID, and then I'll paste it here. And for the issuer, I'm going to copy this over. I'll paste it here. No, that's the client ID. Let me just copy that again. So I'll copy this, copied, and let's paste it here. And then this is the issuer. Let's just make the URL info. So I'm just going to do https :/ and whatever we have there. And also I want to add a dash OAuth2 / default. Okay, and for the redirect URI, let me make this camel case. For the redirect URI, let's copy the one that we set in here, right here. So the login, we have this redirect URI. So let me just copy this and let me just paste it here. Now, if you want to learn more about all these properties, so right here where we install Okta, if you look at the documentation after the installation, you see on the config we have to bring all those properties right here. So instead of doing it this way, I just created a config file so that I can just import the config file and then add it to the app module just like this. So this is the thing that I'll be doing next. So let me just close up this terminal because we are done with it for now, and let's go to our app module. So this is our app module here. Let me just close that up. Okay, so we are here on the app module. So what we need to bring in some modules that we just installed, so specifically the Okta module. So to do that, we just add that to our import. So that will be Okta Auth module, sorry. So we bring that and then it's imported for us here from Okta Angular. Also, we want to set these values for the providers right here. So we have our provider array right here, and we want to bring in these values. So I'm just going to copy this, and then I'm going to paste it there, and we're going to import this from Okta. So I'm just going to use the automatic import for this and also for this. Yeah, so you see I haven't created this Okta config, so I can't import it. So the Okta config is this constant that is declared here. Okay, so let's just create this constant variable here. So the way that I'm going to do it, so we're going to do it at the top before our ng module annotation. So I'm just going to say constant, and there's Okta config. That's the name of our variable right there, so we don't need to import it. And then I'm going to use an object assign to assign all the values to that object that I created. So I'm going to do it this way, on I am going to use on auth required here as my key, on auth required, and here I'm going to pass some values. I'm going to say Okta auth, and let's give this a type of any, and then I'm going to use an injector, and we can get this injector from Angular. So I'm going to get it from Angular core, that injector, and now I'm going to map that and then create a new router. So I'm going to say const router is equal to injector dot, then I'm going to use get router. Okay, but then I have to import the router. So what this is going to do is that it's going to make sure that the user always gets redirected to the custom or login page that we would be adding with the Okta sign-in widget. So for now, I'm just going to do router.navigate, and here we want to navigate to the login page. So I'm going to do this /login, and I need to bring in my properties variable, my config file here, what I defined. And the way I can do that is I'm just going to assign all this with that property class that I defined. So I'm going to use my app.config dot, I called it OIDC, or you can call it whatever you want. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to save it right there. All right, so our app module looks good. Another thing that we need to bring in, so after we install the module for Okta Angular, which is this, we also install that of the sign-in widget, right? So for the sign-in widget, what we would need to do is we need to bring in the CSS class and then the JavaScript file from the website. So let's search for it right here. So I don't waste time going through the documentation. If you check the Okta sign-in widget, you can see those files that I'm talking about, or if you check your node modules, you can find them. So I'm just going to head over to the angular.json file here. So just like we installed Bootstrap and we have it in the node module, we also have the CSS class in the node modules as well. So you know what, let's just check the node module. It should be at Okta. So here we have at Okta right here. So if I open this, you have at Okta Angular, what we brought in, and you also have at Okta sign-in widget. So this is our sign-in widget, and if I go into the distributable, I see the CSS. So I want to copy the path for the CSS. So let's close that, and so we go to our styles, and then we can put the path in our style. So there's too many spaces there, so I'm just going to do this and then paste it. Okay, this is copying we actually needed the relative path, so this is good. Node modules, there you go, that's the part for the CSS. And let's do the same thing for the JavaScript file. So I'm just going to go back, and we have the CSS, we brought that in. So we also need to bring in the JavaScript class, which is this Okta sign-in the JavaScript. So this time let's copy the relative part, and let's close this up, and then we go to the scripts, and then we want to paste that relative part here. So I'm just going to open the quote, and then I paste it here. So now we added Okta Angular to our application, and then we added the Okta widget and the CSS and the JavaScript classes for the CSS. All right, so we're going to build this file in a minute, but before we do that, let's use our widget. Another thing we need to configure is the auth guard. So we need to protect that route when a user try to access the route, we need to protect the route so that the user doesn't get access to the route. So the next thing we want to do, we want to go into our routing .module, and let's protect that route. So to protect the route, so this is the resource that we don't want an unauthenticated user to access. So we're going to use, as usual, in Angular, the can activate method for that, which is our route guard. So we're going to do that with Okta guard. So Okta has a route guard that you can use to protect your routes. So we're going to add that there, and also we want to add the callback component. So when you log in, the Okta service first will take you to the callback component, and that's what we created in our Okta application when we use that redirect URI here. So we're going to create a callback component for this. Okay, so let's just do that now. I'm going to put it before the login, so I'm going to create another route here, and for the path we're going to say login slash callback, login slash callback. And next we want our Okta callback component, so we add the component, and the component that we are using is the Okta callback component. So don't worry, I'm going to save this, and next let's use the widget in our component folder. So to use the widget, we're going to go to our login. So this is where we want to use our login widget. So from our login, we have our configuration properties right here. So we want to bring it because we're going to need that in our component. So I'm going to do an import. So I'm going to say import my app config right here. Oh, and it completed that for me. Okay, that's good. And next I want to import the sign-in widget. So to do that, I'm going to say import. I'm going to import it as Okta sign-in from, and here we want to bring this from Okta sign-in widget, right? So we want to import this, and now there is an interesting problem right here because this our sign-in widget doesn't provide types. So for example, when you are installing components in Angular such as jQuery, you need to use them with what is called a type. So Okta widget doesn't provide types for us like we have in TypeScript. So we need to create the type and then tell the compiler to be able to find this file. So to do that, we're going to create a new file at the root of our application, or we can actually place it in our source directory. So I'm going to close this, and right here in the source directory here, we're going to create a new file. So I'm going to create a new file there, and we want to call it okta.dt.ts. okay, and what we want to have in this file is that module that we cannot find, which is this. So we want to declare this module so that our TypeScript compiler can be able to find it. So let me just copy this right here. So I'm going to copy it and come here, And inside this file, I'm going to say declare module, and I'm going to paste what we just copied here. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to save, and if we go back to our login component, you see the error is gone. But yeah, the error is gone. Okay, but we're going to confirm that later, because there's something that you also need to add to your TypeScript compiler, just in case it's not working for you. If it doesn't work for you, you want to make sure that you set a parameter called you have no implicit returns. You set this to be true. We just want to add another one. Let's just add it here, just in case we run into any issues with this. So I'm going to put another parameter here. I'm going to call it no implicit any. So this is the parameter. You want to set this to false. So if you do that here, TypeScript will be able to find any file with this, and then use this model, and you'll be able to use that model. All right, so to cut the story short, you just need to add that, and put your settings here into that file, so that you'll be able to use this sign-in widget. All right, so let's continue with that. So after we bring the sign-in widget, we also want to bring in Okta. So I'm going to import our Okta service. Our Okta service, not the module. Okta auth service. We're going to bring that from Angular, and now let's create our sign-in. So here we want to declare our Okta sign-in. So we're going to say Okta sign-in, and we're going to give it the type of any, and we want to do this in our constructor. So let's inject the Okta auth service to our constructor. So Okta auth service, so this is the service from Okta, and now we want to do the sign-in with our sign-in widget. So to do that, I'm just going to simply say this.sign-in, Okta sign-in. This is the one we created here, and we're going to create a new instance. So I'm going to say new Okta. That will be a new instance of the Okta sign-in right here, and here I can pass in all the parameters I want. And again, you can check this in the documentation to see all the parameters that you can pass. So you can pass, for example, the logo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy an image from my directory, and then I'm going to paste it there. You can use any image that you want. So I'm going to go to my asset folder right here, and just, you see I have this icon.png, and this is just an Angular logo that we can put in the website. So I'm going to do logo, call it logo, and then I want to go to that directory. So I'm going to say asset / images / icon.png. or an easier way would just to be copy the path here. So you can leave that blank, or you can use any image that you want to do. So another thing you want to set is features Now if you set features, if you put registration, if you set registration to true, then this would enable registration in your application. And before you set this registration to true, you want to also make sure that you enabled it in your Okta directory. So if you go back to the Okta instance that your logged in instance here, and then you check self-service registration right here, and then you go here, you want to make sure that this is enabled. So you're just going to click on edit and set this to enable, otherwise this would not work for you. And this is the place where you can customize what field that you need for your registration form. By default we just have first name and last name, but if you want to add other fields here, you can put that. And what the place you should go to after you're registered, it's your redirect URL, so you can customize that here, otherwise it's going to take you to the dashboard. So you just want to put this to the root of your application. Alright, so features registration true, we can play with this and turn it on and off so you see the difference. Another thing we want to set is the base URL. So this base URL will be coming from my Okta config, so OIDC and issuer, and then I just want to split it and remove that OAuth 2 from it. So I'm just going to put OAuth 2, and I'm going to take the first value when you split it, and then I'm going to add the client ID, and I'm going to do the same thing, the app config OIDC, and then I'm going to use the client ID. This is the one coming from Okta. Also I'm going to use the redirect URI that we added to our config file, and I'm going to do the same thing, my app dot OIDC dot redirect URI. Also we want to configure auth parameters, so I'm going to do auth params, and here we want to set Pixie to be true, and let's set the issuer to be my app config OIDC the issuer, and also we want to set scopes. We already defined the scope, and we go to my app config OIDC the scopes. Alright, so this is our sign-in widget right here. Let's just end that with a semicolon, and now we need to render the widget, and let's do it when the page loads. So on our ng on init, we're going to do this dot our Okta sign-in widget, and then we want to use render. So this is the method that would render the widget, and we also need to pass some parameters. I'm going to pass this L here, that's an ID, and we're going to create an ID here, and whatever we use here, this is what we will be using in the HTML element to display the widget. So I'm just going to call it Okta sign-in widget like this, and then I want to close this up and then check for response. So I'm going to check response, and use the type of any, And right here I want to check the status, so I'm going to do response.status, and if this is success, then we want to call sign in with redirect. So this is where we do our sign in. So I'm just going to do this dot Okta auth service dot sign in with redirect. So this is the method that signs us in. Okta auth service dot sign in. Okay, everything looks good, but here we can also check for errors. So we have a response, let me just break this up. You have this, and then you have so this is the renderer, and then a response, and if this, then this. Now we need the comma here, and then we want to check for errors. So I'm going to say errors. If there's any error, then we're going to throw that error. And we want to end this with code, and then we want to end this ng on init method right here. All right, that looks good. And then we want to remove this sign in widget if we're not using it. So we can also do this like when the page is destroyed. So ng on init, so we can also use the ng on destroy interface, for example, like this, and then we implement the method. So let's put it below the ng on init method here, ng destroy, and when the method is destroyed, we want to do this Okta sign in, then we want to remove that widget. And finally, we want to render this on the login.html component. So here we have login work. We want to render our widget here. And to do that, we simply need to pass in that ID that we created. So let's do that in a div. So I'm just going to do hash, and the name of the ID was Okta sign in widget. Okay, and let's give it some bootstrap classes. So let's give it the class of pt5, and let's also have it inside a div of class pt-5. So it's going to make the sign-in widget to be at the center. All right, this looks good. Moment of truth. Let's see what our sign-in widget looks like. So now we're on the welcome page, and on the login page, you see we have our sign-in form here, but then we don't see the CSS and the JavaScript files that we have added because we haven't built this file. So I'm just going to clear this up and run the build again by doing ng serve, So anytime you make changes to your Angular.json, you want to rebuild your Angular project so that all the changes take effect. We also have our no implicit any here set to false, so that's good. So now look at what we have. We have our login page and we have everything. We have the image and we have the sign in and the sign up button. So if I click the sign up button, it's going to take us here where we create account, and we can go back to the sign in. So you can toggle that on and off from this features part that says registration true. So if I just change that to registration false, for example, and I save that, now you're going to see that there is no sign up or part here. So if you want to sign up, you just need to add the user directly from here, from your Okta dashboard. So this is it. Let's just add back the registration and try to add a new user. So I'm just going to say registration is true, and now let's try to add a new user. Okay, for the email, thinking of a player, let's just do Lionel Messi at gmail.com. I hope this is not their real email, by the way. And for the password, I'm just going to do, let's do Chelsea 123. And for the first name, I'm going to do Lionel, and for the last name, I'm going to do Messi. All right, so let's register and see if it works. So we are registered, and then you see we get to this welcome page, welcome works. So our registration is working, and it takes us to our home page. So the next thing we want to do is we want to customize this page a bit. Right now we just have the home and the login, so we need to change this login to logout when you're logged in, and let's display something else here when a user logs in. So first of all, let's take this Auth app navigation and make it centered. And to do that, I'm going to go to my nav right here, nav.html. Let's just get this out of the way. And right here I see they're using container fluid. To make it centered, I'm going to use a container. Alright, so it's centered, and we have the login, and we also have the logout. So another thing we can do is that we can check if a user is authenticated. We want to change this login link to logout, so they can be able to log out and log back in again. So to do that, we need to bring in our auth service. So Okta has created their authentication service for you, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, so create it again. You just use their service to do your login. So for example, if I go back to my login TS, the way we are doing our login is we just call this Okta auth service sign in with redirect, and it's using our sign in widget. And for us to use the sign in widget, we just created the sign in widget in our constructor. We imported everything from our config, and we imported the sign in widget, of course. So that's just the real gist. So to use to display the data that we are getting, we're going to use the service, same thing like we did for the login. So let's go back to our nav component. So we'll go to the, not the HTML, but we want to go to the TS file. So navigation.ts. All right, and here we want to bring in our Okta service. So I'm going to say private Okta auth service. So Okta auth service. So I'll bring the Okta auth service right here, and now we're going to get access to the authcar state, and it's going to return a boolean for us. So let's create a variable to hold that value. So let's call it something like is authenticated, and this is a boolean. So let's initialize this to be false, so the user isn't logged in. And now in our constructor, we're going to call that service. So we're going to say this dot Okta service dot you see we have this authentication state right here, and you can see the Okta service interface. You have all the methods right here that you can play around with. You even have something with fingerprint, forgot password, that can reset the password, send you an email, and all of this good stuff right here. But the one that's interesting for us right now is the authentication state, because we want to get the authentication state of the user to know if he's logged in or not, and that's an observable. As you can see, most variable that are observables in Angular start with the $sign. That's how you distinguish them between an observable and just a normal variable. So when we subscribe to that observable, we want to set the value that is returned. This dot is authenticated. Let me just break down this up. Oops. Just break it up so we have some space. So I'm just going to say is, let me just call it is auth for short, and I'm going to set that variable, which is this dot is authenticated. I'm going to set it to what we get back, which is this is auth. All right, that looks good. All right, so we are setting this value of is authenticated to check if the user is authenticated. Yeah, so we can also call the is authenticated method to make sure that the user is authenticated. So you subscribe to this variable, and also you need to call that is authenticated method on the ng on init. So to do that, I'm going to say this dot is authenticated right here, and I'm going to await the result, because that service returns an async, and I'm going to do this is authenticated here. And for this to work, I also need to make this async, and then it doesn't return void anymore. All right, so this is our is authenticated method, and we need one more method for this nav component, and that's our logout method. So to call the logout method, we can simply use our service and say this dot authcar service dot sign out. So that way we can sign out from our application. So now that we've created all these methods, let's use them in the HTML. So I'm just going to go back to my nav.html, and right here we have the login. Right here we have the login link. So let's create one more for the logout. So to do that, I can simply copy it and paste it right here, and I have the login, and the logout won't be a link. Actually, it's going to be a button. So instead of having a router link, we're going to have a click handler. So when that link is clicked, we want to make it go to that logout function we created there. If I save this, we're going to have that logout. We have that. No, it's not called login, but we're going to call it logout. Okay, if I check it now, we have login and logout. And now we're going to use this is authenticated variable that we are getting right here. We are setting it here and we're setting it here. So we're going to use that to check if the user is authenticated, to be able to hide those links. All right, and to do that, we can do it here, for example, and use an ngIf. Let's just do it there. Yes, so I'm going to say ngIf, and I want to check if is authenticated. Yeah, that's what we called it. So if is authenticated, then you want to show that logout. So it's still showing, but our login is also showing as well, and we don't want that to show because we are already logged in. So I'm just going to copy this ngIf, and on the login here, I'm going to paste it and going to say if we are not authenticated, then show that. So now we are doing that. The login link is gone, and now we are here. Let's just do it for the home button as well. So this home button, let's only show that button if we are authenticated. So right here we want to paste this, and it's still showing that if we're authenticated, we have the home button. Now when we click on the logout, I don't see the cursor here, and a way I can fix that is because this is a link and we want to use it as a button. So I can easily add a role here and set it to button. And now if I save this and then I try to log out, you see I have the link here, and I click log out. Let's see if it works. Now it logs me out and we are back here to the sign in page. So let's try to sign in again with our account. We created one, leomessi@gmail.com, and our password was Chelsea123. And if I click on sign in, don't save, we're back in, and here we see home and log out. Finally, let's just add a jumbotron and put welcome with our user name there before we end the tutorial. So to do that, we need to go back to our welcome page, and we can reuse all this component that we have here. We don't need the sign in, but we can use that is authenticated method to show the message. And if the user is authenticated, then we can get the user. You know what, let's just go to the welcome page and do that. So I'm just going to go to the welcome component.ts right here, and then we want to set that is authenticated variable again. Is authenticated, we're going to set it to boolean, and for our username, let's set another variable, username So type string, let's initialize it to an empty string. And for the constructor, of course, we want to bring in our auth service from authcar. So I'm just going to call it authcar service. Actually, you can call this anything just to show you that. So I'm just going to use auth service, but this is actually authcar auth service. And this is going to be an async function like we had before. So I'm just going to call this async. And first we're going to check our is authenticated. And we can get this with await like we did before, and we'll say this dot authcar auth service. Oops, this dot auth service, we call that auth service for short. And then we use is authenticated here. And now we can check if this dot is authenticated, then we can get the user. So I'm just going to create the local variable inside here and get the user claim. So the user claims would be equal to await, and let's use this dot auth service dot we can get token, get access token, but we want to get the user right here. So this is going to get the email, the username, first name and last name. Remember we captured that from our registration. So I'm just going to say this dot, let's say name, because we're getting the name of the user. So I'm just going to say this dot name would be equal to user claim dot name, and this is going to get the name of the user, or it's going to return an empty string if it can't find it. Alright, so we have this right here set to this. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to display it in our HTML. So let's just go to welcome component.html. In our welcome component.html, let's get rid of this welcome works, and let's use a container. Spell that right. And in this container, let's add some classes to make it a jumbotron. I'm going to do P5, margin top 3, and let's do background of light, and let's make the edges rounded. So these are the bootstrap classes to give you jumbotron. And inside of that we want to set the h1. Let's set it to welcome, and let's also have a paragraph here. So I'm going to do a paragraph, and let's display the name variable that we saved in the ts file. So I'm just going to set this to name, and let's give this paragraph a class of lead. Okay, so I'm going to save this now, and there we have welcome Lionel Messi. But I don't see the background because I did background light dash rounded. So I'm just going to remove this like this and save that again. Now we have the background and we have Lionel Messi. Alright, so I'm going to go log out, and let's close this now, and this is our application. So there you have it, guys. That's our simple authentication application using Angular and Okta. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and also share it with your friends and your family. And also, if you like content like this, please do well to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll see you later with some more videos. Bye guys.